What's the most insane story in the Bible that most people forget about? The story of Lot. Lives in a city that is targeted for nuclear destruction by God. God sends an angel to the city to place a targeting beacon. Angel is almost gang up head. Lot gets angel indoors out of trouble. Lot sends daughter out to be gang up head to calm down the crowd. Yay. Gang up a. Angel decides to spare Lot and his family as a reward for the gang upping of his daughter. Lot and family pack up and leave. Angel says do not look back or you will die. Wife looks back and is turned to salt. She never could mind her own business. Lot's daughters realize their father can have no more children. Daughters get dad liquored up and ride him like a horse for a couple of days and get knocked up. Yay incest. Crap's worse than a porno movie. Not insane like setting bears on children, but more amusing like a touch of comedy. Not sure the chapter and verse, but there was a guy who wanted to see Jesus speak, but he was bedridden, so he and his friends haul him in his bed up onto the roof of the building Jesus was going to appear. Then tie ropes to the bed and lower him down into the meeting. It just has sitcom all over it. It's Always Sunny in Judea. Onan. Dude gets smote by God because he refuses to come inside his brother's wife. Genesis 38, 8-10. Then Judas said to Onan, sleep with your brother's wife and fulfill your duty to her as a brother-in-law to raise up offspring for your brother. 9 But Onan knew that the child would not be his, so whenever he slept with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground to keep from providing offspring for his brother. 10 What he did was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death also. The Apostle Paul is giving an address to a group of people one night. He is so bat crap boring that some dude nods off, falls out a window and dies. Paul calmly walks down, raises him back to life and then goes back up and continues the evening. Acts 20. Imagine being able to bring people back to life, but people still find you so boring a guy literally falls to his death. Jesus and the disciples needed to pay their taxes, but didn't have any money. Jesus has one of them catch a fish, then reaches in its mouth and pulls out a coin. Ta-da! That time Solomon wrote about how his wife was so crazy for his ivory tusk covered in sapphire bulges. Aaron's 2 sons, against God's command, burned strange incense within the tabernacle. So, God burned them to death with fire in front of the entire congregation, including Aaron and Moses. Don't frick with the tabernacle. Sounds like they got stoned at church and God was peed they smoked inside lol. He whose testicles are crushed or whose male member is cut off shall not enter the assembly of the Lord. Deuteronomy 23, 1. If 2 men are fighting and the wife of one of them comes to rescue her husband from his assailant, and she reaches out and seizes him by his private parts, you shall cut off her hand. Show her no pity. Deuteronomy 25, 11-12. Judges 19-22. Send out this strange man so we may repay him. No, take this virgin girl instead. Proverbs 26, 18-19 King James Version. KJV. 18 As a madman who casteth firebrands, arrows, and death. 19 So is the man that deceiveth his neighbor, and saith, am not I in sport? The original it's just a prank, bro. I was always a fan of the alternate ending to Judas's story. Instead of hanging himself out of guilt for having asked out Jesus, he used the fat cash the Romans gave him to buy some land. He then proceeded to fall over and the Mithafrika exploded. He bought a parcel of land with the wages of his iniquity, and falling headlong, he burst open in the middle, and all his inside spilled out. Acts 1:18. That's one way to fertilize your garden. Samson was walking with his parents once, and they got attacked by a lion. Rather than trouble mom and dad, he ripped the lion apart with his bare hands and buried it to keep them from noticing. I've always wondered how the following conversation went. Sammy? What happened to you? Where did all that blood come from? Hangnail. Korah, a guy who rebelled against Moses, was swallowed up by the ground, along with 250 of his followers. Sinkholes are scary. After the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, for attempting to repay some angels, and after Lot's wife turns into a pillar of salt for looking back, Lot's 2 young daughters decided to get their father drunk so they could trick him into getting them pregnant. Old Testament is full of some weird crap. Man named Jephthah won a battle and was so happy that he told God, first creature to come out of my house will be given as a sacrifice. His daughter was the first to come out. Everyone knows the story of Noah's Ark, but nobody remembers the next part, where he gets super drunk and wanders around naked, passes out and his kids have to drag his naked, drunk, passed out butt back home. Noah's Ark 2, the after party. Remember Joseph and his coat of many colors? His siblings did a lot. A man once slept with Arphed, one of their sisters. The man then asked Joseph's family to marry the girl. The brothers agreed, but said that the man and his entire village tribe would need to get circumcised first. So all the men in the village get circumcised, which means they're bedridden for the next couple days. Once that happened, a couple of Joseph's brothers walked into the village and killed every single man while they were in their beds. Genesis 34. Jael invites a guy and then she drives a tent spike through his skull with a hammer. Judges 4:19. David took his men with him and went out and killed 200 Philistines and brought back their foreskins. They counted out the full number to the king so that David might become the king's son-in-law. Then Saul gave him his daughter Michal in marriage. 1 Samuel 18:27. There's a bit in Exodus where God sends Uriel to torment and abuse Moses for not circumcising his son. Moses was seconds from death when his wife circumcised their son with a rock and laid the foreskin at his feet, sparing his life from grisly archangel murder. God really seems like a fun, laid-back guy. There's a really fat king who gets stabbed and he's so fat that the sword gets swallowed up in his fat when he's stabbed. Source: I'm theology student. The story of Ehud is one of my favorites. I'm glad to see someone mention it. The prophet Elijah challenges 450 prophets of Baal to what is essentially a sacrifice off, to see whose god will end a drought. He lets them go first, and as they chant and sacrifice and cut themselves for hours, he's on the sidelines trash talking them non-stop. Translations vary, but his insults range from scream louder, I think your god is asleep, to he must be busy, maybe he's on the toilet. He was literally crap talking an enemy god, and then when it's finally his turn, he just goes the extra mile to show them up, completely soaking the wood in the animal he was using for his sacrifice before making it burn. Not a story, but just my favorite Bible verse. Whenever I see someone do something incredibly cringe-worthy or despicable, I like to quote it. It's Genesis 6:6. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. So, if you see the headline to an article which says, New Minions movie set to release in 2019, you can just angrily scoff Genesis 6:6. There's a part of Exodus that is still much debated as it's clear that something was cut out. God came to kill Moses for a sin, but it doesn't say what the sin was. He was saved by his wife. At a lodging place on the way, the Lord met Moses and was about to kill him. But Zipporah took a flint knife, cut off her son's foreskin and touched Moses' feet with it. Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me, she said. So the Lord let him alone. At that time she said bridegroom of blood, referring to circumcision. That's it. 3 verses. Exodus 4:24-26. God came to kill Moses. Zipporah performed a hasty circumcision and this convinced God to leave him alone. And it's never mentioned again. A lot of the mystery is because of how ambiguously it is written. The translation I copied says that she touched Moses with the foreskin, but it's actually a pronoun in the original and it could have been God or her son she touched and referred to. Numbers 22:28-29. Balaam's donkey spoke, and Balaam, who was so angry with the donkey, started arguing with it rather than freaking out that his donkey spoke. Jesus straight up killed a fig tree because it didn't give him fruit. Early in the morning, as Jesus was on his way back to the city, he was hungry. Seeing a fig tree by the road, he went up to it but found nothing on it except leaves. Then he said to it, "May you never bear fruit again." Immediately the tree withered. Matthew 21:18-22 Nev. The Israelites are dumb and take the Ark of the Covenant into battle without asking God. They lose the battle and the Canaanites take it and put it in one of their temples. The priests come in the next morning and their idol is face down in front of the Ark. They set up the idol. The next morning it is on the floor again, but its hands and feet have broken off. How about the 3-headed dragon that will attack Earth? Not the most insane, But I love that Moses with the tablets came back, saw everyone kinda just partying without him, got mad and broke the tablets and then had to go get new ones. Not a story exactly, but my dad would tell me this joke when I was kid. You know who the stretchiest man in the Bible was? Moses. The verse says, and Moses tied his butt to a tree and roamed the forest. Samson got angry at some guys, so he burned their crops. He did not do this with a torch, or with a bunch of workers with torches. He did this by rounding up 300 foxes, tying them together tail to tail in pairs, and attaching a torch to each pair, then letting them loose in the fields. Work smarter, not harder. Balaam the talking donkey was pretty rad. Balaam and his talking donkey, traveling sideshow. People seem to think Jesus was always this peaceful, gentle man, but they seem to forget about the cleansing of the temple. Sellers were making an insane profit from Jewish travelers who came to offer a sacrifice at the temple by selling them animals and whatnot. Well, Jesus didn't like that one bit. Suddenly, his theme song starts playing, which I imagine was played on a lyre or flute, and everybody knows they're fricked. Jesus busts into the temple and starts running down the aisle. Everyone but the merchants are cheering. The Jews are pumped, knowing Jesus is about to make the Smithafrika burn. Jesus starts flipping tables and crap, and then whips the ever-loving frick out of the merchants and money changers with a whip that he made by himself. Point of the story: nobody fricks with a Jesus. You've been spotted by the doggo of studying. Like this video for good grades for the next 2 years. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.